Hello, leader. Welcome back to the Fierce Factor podcast. It's your host, Kaylee here, and you are tuning in to episode number 248. Listen, what I have for you today is a powerhouse guest who I have been dying to have on this podcast. Cult Aesthetics visionary and co-founder, Miss Allie McAllister. Allie came to us through our Confidence to Scale program when she was experiencing what we like to consider champagne problems. Truly so much success that she needed to pull back and figure out what to do with it. And so many women come to us in this space feeling absolutely in love with their business, but also just feeling like the machine, it just can't slow down. And if you're a listener here, I know you get it. You're not someone who pumps the brakes unless you really have to. And that's our girl, Allie here. She is the figurehead of multiple businesses, a prominent specialist in aesthetic medicine, and co-founder of Cult Aesthetic Clinics, Cult Aesthetics Conferences, and Squeeze Skin. She is recognized as one of America's top 100 injectors now for 2 consecutive years. Allie stands at the forefront of anti-aging innovation as a national Galderma trainer and a board-certified aesthetic nurse practitioner in Atlanta. She brings over 8 years of expertise to her work. Allie's commitment to excellence is evidenced in her clinic's approach to anti-aging, favoring natural enhancement over dramatic change. And this is a direct reflection of her philosophy that best cosmetic outcomes are those that preserve and celebrate the individual's unique features. And listen, Goddess, this episode is truly a masterclass in personal branding because so many of us, when we think about a brand, we think about colors and fonts and style. But what Allie shares with us is the real nuts and bolts of what it takes to position your business as a luxury brand that magnetizes the best clients. And the strategy isn't actually what you think. She connects the dots for us on how setting boundaries in your business and life are the key to allowing you to show up as a professional who commands the highest level of respect. And P.S., that's also how you get well paid. Allie shares her growth as a leader and how learning how to set better expectations and accountabilities with her team members has created a domino impact, attracting better talent into her companies and therefore elevating the experience she's able to deliver to patients. And through her commitment to upholding these standards, she has grown her confidence to market to and magnetize the most ideal clients who, quite frankly, don't blink at pricing. I really enjoyed this conversation. I'm telling you, be prepared to fill your notebook. Without further ado, please meet badass CEO, Allie McAllister. Hi there. Welcome to the Fierce Factor podcast. I'm your host, Kaylee Lindholm. And I think it's time for us women to shift the conversation in business and step into our feminine leadership to do the most iconic work the aesthetic industry has ever seen. Each week, I'll be bringing a powerful dose of strategy, sarcasm, solutions, and sass that will rev up your creativity and ignite your brilliance as you link arms with me along our shared path of personal and professional growth in 20 minutes or less. Let's go. Well, hello, Allie, and welcome to the Fierce Factor podcast. Excited to have you joining me today.
Hey, Kaylee, I'm so happy we're doing this finally.
I know. I feel like when we met and talked briefly, and the first time I got to know you, we had like this quick interaction. I think at Aesthetic Next conference was the first time we had our first like real life. I think we'd been introduced like 13 times by different people and DMs and emails and all the things.
Everyone's I should meet you for years. And I think Aesthetic Next in the back row, we were back row buddies.
Back row buddies. And then we stepped outside and talked. And then I remember you mentioned there were like, you in your sort of dry, funny sense of humor rolling out of there made like 7 comments. And I was like, I like this girl. And I have so many questions about everything she had to say. I think you're like, I'm running out to get IVF, but don't worry. It's not because I can't have kids. But anyway, okay. Yeah. And then this, and then my husband and my dog and all my businesses and talk to you later. And I was like, okay.
I literally was probably carrying a bag of IVF drugs and like some ice around the whole conference.
Yeah, it was like that. So I was like, okay, I got to talk to this girl. So anyway, it's been a pleasure getting to know you, and obviously having you go through our Confidence to Scale program recently. And so I wanted to just bring you on to talk a lot about your business and how you have gone about growing and scaling Cult, both your medical aesthetic practice, your conference, and then also your third business, Squeeze Skin. So why don't you just tell the listeners, kind of catch them up on who you are, a little bit about your business and your mission?
Okay, awesome. So that's a great introduction. I'm Allie McAllister. I'm a dermatology certified nurse practitioner. I have been in aesthetics for 10 years. That number is alarming at this point. It's everything I always wanted to do. I left nursing school wanting to do aesthetics. So this was not, I didn't fall into this arena. It was something that I intentionally put myself in. And now I'm the co-founder, which is fun and an interesting part of our business, of a aesthetic practice, Cult Aesthetics. We opened that. Actually, it might be a year today, Kaylee. I'm not even kidding. I think it might be a year today. And then Cult Conference was our first baby. She was born in 2020. And then Squeeze Skin came along about a year or two ago, probably 2 years at this point. And that's our online e-commerce site. So those are kind of the three babies, the three businesses. And I co-own all of these with my business partner based out of Dallas, Texas. Yeah, that's kind of us. Our conference is designed for, advanced injectors. It's boutique, it's intimate. Our practices are the same way. We really value education and providing, above mediocre results, right? We want to make sure that our patients are not getting a med spa experience. They're getting an aesthetic practice experience. Everybody that they see is trained by Jen and I. High level education. We pride ourselves on that. Results that are beautiful, natural, undetectable, durable. Yeah. And then Squeeze Skin is just our curation of all of our favorite skincare products. We don't carry a entire line of any brand, but we carry all of our curated hero products. So it's fun.
Love that. So I don't think I asked you this question because Jen, your co-founder, is in Dallas. How did you guys meet?
So we met at a cadaver lab, Chris Sturg's cadaver lab, in 2020.
No way.
So, yeah, we had never met. We had a mutual friend on Instagram who kept saying, oh, you should meet her. You should meet her. And I was like, okay, yeah. I think I had 500 followers. And Jen had this big, giant Instagram following. And I mean, you want the real story? The real story is that I met Jen, but then it was COVID. So everyone had been locked up. We went to a bar afterwards. And, I in college had this horrible habit of sneaking a cigarette after a few too many cocktails, and her now fiance, I bummed a cigarette off of him, and here we are.
Wait, but they were already together?
They were together.
Okay,
yeah.
All right.
Yes. And by the end of the night, he's telling me hey, so I'm gonna propose. Here's a photo of the ring. I mean, we all rushed our relationships incredibly, and it's worked out well for us. But that's how we met. A horrible habit, and God, I mean, the thought of that now is disgusting. But at the time, after a few cocktails, it was great. That's how we met. We became training buddies, and then literally months later, decided we should start a conference together. That was the first venture.
Okay. And so at that point, you didn't have your business yet because we're celebrating your 1 year anniversary today, which
yes.
I'd have bought a cupcake or something.
It's okay. It's all right. No, I definitely don't need a cupcake. I was a dermatology nurse practitioner, and I worked for a large medical derm practice in Atlanta at the time. I did aesthetics. My first job was for a plastic surgeon. I thought I wanted to go full medical derm, so I made the change. All my aesthetics patients followed me, and I started seeing more and more, and it just came to me, and I was like, what am I doing eventually? But at the time, no, I had dabbled with the idea of leaving my derm practice. And Jen and I actually, after the conference, I ended up opening the Atlanta location for her previous employer, who was a plastic surgeon. So I helped them open the Atlanta office. And then I was with them for probably 2 years. They decided they wanted to sell to private equity. It did not make sense for me or Jen at the time. So we both exited that company. And that is when we opened our own practices.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so what has it been like? You're a year in. Let's talk to us about your year. What's it been like as a business owner?
I mean, there was a reason that I did confidence to scale. I wish I could have said I had the foresight to say, hey, I'm going to need this, and had done it earlier, but it came in a moment of really like despair. I was confident in what Jen and I were building. I was not necessarily confident in my skills as a leader and my skills to take the team that had been under me at this previous practice and transition them into our new practice. So actually, before you and I met, I had reached out and Krista and I met, and I remember literally sobbing to her on a Zoom call. Like, my team is falling apart. I suck at this. I don't know what I'm doing. My practice, it felt like I kind of had like a coup. And it more than anything, looking back now, I'm able to self-reflect on it. And they needed somebody that was really confident in what it looked like to work for cult aesthetics clinics. And I don't think I painted that picture accurately. And I think if I had, from the very beginning, it would have saved all of us a lot of heartache and turmoil. And I'm glad we've gone through that. But I think that was one of the things that, I'm jumping way ahead, but that confidence to scale taught me was that I needed to feel, not to overuse the word, but confident in what it means to be a cult aesthetics provider. What is that level of detail and thoughtfulness that we bring to our patients? What are my expectations of my team? And I don't think that I was clear on that. So then I was disappointed. They were disappointed. So we had a lot of change that first year. It was hard. We're in such a great place now. And I think partially because we're in our permanent office, it's beautiful. We were in a temporary space, and it's just hard to rally the motivation of a whole team for 8 months. And it was a lot of change.
I kind of think it's too like a rite of passage. And I hate like somebody who's got like a great team and they're new at this, like, I'm not trying to turn anybody off, but I also think like, I wish someone had, I don't know, probably someone did warn me and I just didn't listen, but to tell me that like, hey, you're going to go through like 8 employees before you find one,
And it's okay. It doesn't mean that you're a failure. I think I took it all. I felt all of it so personally, like that I had failed in all of these ways. I'm a like type A front row kid. Normally, I don't know why I was in the back row with you. Thank God that I was. But I mean, I feel all of it very personally, and I hold myself to a very high standard. And so then I hold my employees to a high standard. And I used to think maybe I needed to change that. And it was one of the things that I think you said it in one of our sessions in Confidence to Scale is, a lot of times leaders are like, okay, well, how do I make myself sound less abrasive or like, how do I dim my light? How do I change who I am? And I think I feel so much peace around the fact that I just need to be confident in who I am and clear with what my expectations are so that, it lets people, it's like being kind instead of being nice. Nice is like not rocking the boat. Being kind is being honest.
Yeah, well, we always say we hold people to an expectation, whether we actually verbalize that or not, and whether that
100%.
Or sometimes we don't even know that we are, and it's just because of who we are. And so I love that you brought that up because I think, for the listeners of this podcast, there's a lot of business owners that, are going through and deal with these struggles on a daily basis, and I think part of it's a confidence thing, but part of it's like, well, if I don't have a team, I literally can't run my business, And so like, if I actually am that nitpicky about like our standards and I'm just on top of everybody all the time about what my expectation is and they leave me, then what, And so I think it's a real fear that people have for sure.
Well, and I think what's worse than them leaving is them staying and peeing in your pool.
Yeah, that's true.
Little peas over and over and over.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, you have to take the course. Okay, so it's interesting because you and I had a conversation about this, and I think this is something that you it sort of transcends in your marketing a bit. And so I think I've thought about this a little bit about like I'm asked a lot of times, like, help me do a better job of marketing myself. And a lot of the challenges that people have where they think that they need more clients, or, they're feeling in lack or insufficient about like the way that their business is growing. They haven't done any work on establishing a brand positioning strategy. And when you talk about like the standards of excellence of your team, like that's something that I know you and I have had conversations about like you also have to hold a standard of excellence for the type of client that you allow to come in, like you're going to pour yourself into. And that's a big thing we talk about in CTS, but I think something that you've just always done innately well. And I think especially for like having a young business, it's really impressive. And I did watching your and Jen's talk at, you guys gave a talk on like scaling to the first 3 million or something like that. I maybe butcher the topic, but at Aesthetic Next. And you guys talked about a lot about that, about like, look, like hold your pricing strategy, like, put filters in place. So like there's certain gates that patients have to like, pass to like be able to be a client here, right, at Cult. So I kind of want to talk a little bit about that, because I think that that's a big part of running a business that you really love, is making sure that you have clients that you love too. So like, what has that meant for you in terms of like brand position, and how important is that around your marketing strategy? And how, I know it's a multi-pronged question, but how have you utilized that to weave like how you message to your market and how you market your practice and your conference too?
I think some of it, like you said, was just innate. Like I didn't know exactly that I was doing it, but I knew I was doing it. And if I'm being honest with myself, it's because I'm willing to work really, really hard about things that I enjoy and that I have passion with. I think you said, like, you're not burnout, you're just uninspired. And nothing could be more true. If I am, for instance, with our conference, we do CME. I loathe it. I wait until the last minute to apply for CME. It drives me absolutely nuts. I'm not inspired by us being CME credentialed. I do it because I think it's good for the conference. I have zero interest in it. When we were starting this company, Cult Clinics, I would stay up till 3 a.m. every single night and not care at all, because I had all of this like fire burning to do it, because it was such a clear mission. So the same thing is always translated with my patients. I adore my patients. I love them. When people shadow me, it's one of the things I get every single time is, how do you have such nice patients? And one, it's because I curate a relationship with them. But if somebody comes in and they are nitpicking every tiny little wrinkle, they're not my patient. Like, I'm so interested in women and men, but women who are passionate about life, who they don't have to have a career, but they have to have passions, goals, things outside of the way their face looks for me to want to interact with them and not be turned off by them. And that might sound kind of harsh, but it's helped me curate this clientele that I want to see. I don't walk out of a room and roll my eyes. They inspire me. I think it's like a mutual relationship. So how did I get there? I think one, it's because you attract what you put out. I myself get my talks 4 times a year. I get a couple of lasers here and there. I'm not overly augmented. You've seen me at conferences and out and about, and like I just learned how to do the filter on Zoom, like just now. I'm not obsessed with every little wrinkle. And I think it's because I have more going on in my life than just my appearance, right? Like, I've found confidence and self-worth internally instead of seeking it externally, which can be kind of like a dichotomy with what we do in aesthetics. So my brand, my marketing is about feeling confident. It's not about looking perfect or looking young. It's collagen and confidence. It's making sure that your skin quality is great. And those might seem like, okay, yeah, but you're talking about the same thing, but you're not, because whatever your marketing messaging is, you're going to attract that person. So if you're advertising lip flips all the time, you're going to get a 19-year-old into your chair who wants to pay $150. I don't have time for that. I want the hot mom that's getting ready for her daughter's bar mitzvah, and she's like, I got a year, let's wrap. and I make a game plan and we execute. And she sends me this like bomb photo where she looks like freaking Beyonce at her daughter's bar mitzvah. Like, that's my girl.
So, okay. So Allie, like, how do you get to that point though, where you're like, okay, but I'm trying to build my practice and I'm not fully booked. And like, how do you do that?
So you say yes to more things in the beginning, obviously. So I was open for all appointments in the beginning. I took all tox patients. I charged tox by the unit, but you have to deliver amazing results. You have to start capturing amazing results, and you need to be strategic about which ones you're posting. Like I said, I'll use the lip flip as an example. You're not, even though you might be treating a lip flip patient because you got to pay your bills, you're not posting that. You're posting the full face sculpture treatment. Your email campaigns are not about lip flips. They're gonna be about facial balancing, right? You're gonna talk about these things that you want to achieve. I mean, you have to start personifying externally on social media, on your marketing, what you want to be. And it doesn't mean, like you said, we've all been there where we just say yes to every single patient. That's one of our recommendations is you start out focusing on lips, do the best lip in town. But then you start talking to them about, let's talk about your skin quality. How can we improve that? Let's get you on a package for laser treatments, right? But I think this all boils back to having a plan.
Mm-hmm.
Not just wanting to be an injector, right? Like the plan for me was, let's create a place where our clientele has, like, think of your avatar. They make this much income a year. They like to do these things. But also there are clinics that are very successful that don't have that same marketing philosophy.
Really? I'm just kidding. No, I'm joking. No,
I mean, not ones that I want to work at, but there are.
Like, and I absolutely think that's the beauty of like what we do and why there are multiple med spas and aesthetic practices and physicians like in every city, because you're going to connect with your people.
But
right?
Are people going to them and getting facial balancing? Absolutely not, right? Yeah. They're never going to have, like, I see the same patients that I have seen for 10 years. I know their life story, and I'm treating them through the lifespan, which I fully enjoy. Those other med spas you're going to have way more patient turnover.
Well, you know what I have found? I think that there's just confusion about what a personal brand is and branding in general. And I think for me, it's like people do business with people they trust. And so you have to think to yourself, what can I say today that's going to let somebody like trust me and feel more authentically connected to me? And that's what I see you doing. You know, there's a distinct difference between somebody that's trying to talk about themselves and promote themselves so much to the point that, like, I think in their mind, they think like, oh, this is my personal brand. And I've heard people say like, you are your brand or whatever. And I'm like, not really. Like, I think your brand is what is a platform for you to build trust with people. And you should be thinking about them, right? That's what I'm hearing you say.
And if it's just you, you're going to be very tired very quickly, especially if you're successful at it. You will burn yourself out, because when I think of cult aesthetics, and when Jen and I, birthed cult aesthetics, the goal was not to be Jen and Allie. We don't want to be the faces of our clinics. I want it to be that we provide a luxurious experience that inspires confidence and empowers our patients to pursue their goals and embrace extraordinary lives. Our mission, thanks to you. Like, that's what I want people to think of when they think of cult, is amazing, undetectable results. I want them to picture a businesswoman who also has a family, who travels, who's really confident and self-fulfilled. Not me.
Right.
I don't want to be the face.
Yeah. Well, you just done a really beautiful job. And even you and Jen both like the cult. I just like watching your guys' Instagram post. I'm like, this is just fun. Like, it's like, ooh, what's under that stuff? Like the windows, like you just just stimulating curiosity and,
And it should be fun, right? Like that's one thing Jen and I have said, especially this year, because it has been, I think this first year, we've been in the game with the conference, with our e-commerce, and our last setup was very interesting. We employed injectors under our own brands within a plastic surgery practice. So we had some, protected experience with running a practice, if you will. But this last year, doing this the way we wanted to do it, having the teams change, it was really freaking hard. And we've had to have these conversations with each other and say, owning a business is hard. Being an entrepreneur is really hard, but it doesn't have to be miserable and it should be fun. Like if we're not having any fun, like why are we doing this? Like we could go make some money for a plastic surgeon and work 3 days a week.
Yeah. I think that, it does get to that point. Like I thought of this recently, just you get to a point where you're exhausted and especially you start to, and if you're starting to feel uninspired, I think it's worth asking that question. Like, what am I even doing? Like, what's the point, to Jen, because we keep talking about her too. I'm curious because I talk to a lot of people that will say like, oh, I want to get a business partner. Like, who should I partner or how should I look for a business partner? And I'm always like, don't.
And I think, honestly, that's probably really sound advice.
So let's talk about that. Like, why did you decide to partner? And like, what has that experience been like for you?
Well, let me start by saying in some ways, we're partnered with the plastic surgeon that we were in business with. And that really was a hard divorce, if you will, for us. So I've been in a partnership in a business that didn't go well. I think one thing that I learned through that is I would recommend, you see a lot of this physician nurse type dynamic. I think when someone has more power, more money, more authority, I don't see that usually going well. One thing about Jen and I, besides the fact that she had more Instagram followers than me, is that we were always on the same level. We had overall the same goals. We had been in aesthetics about the same amount of time. We were both training, doing the same types of things. And it was honestly a lot of luck. Like we literally met, we did another training together. We sat by a pool, had a margarita and said, like, let's start a conference. But our conference was a low risk business.
Yeah.
We didn't have a lot of financial collateral in there at all. It was our first one was during COVID. It was easy to get a conference room at the time. We, tricked people into coming to the first one and it ended up being a great conference. So it, in that sense, it wasn't like we just met and said, hey, let's spend, $1 million each on these new practices.
We didn't do but you dated before you got married.
Yes. Yeah. We drank the milk before we, bought the cow. Some Southern saying like that. So that was the start of it. And then with our e-commerce, that was one where we did have a little more financial, put in, buy-in, if you will. I was running a online e-commerce out of my 1-bedroom apartment's bathroom closet. And I mean, that was where I kept everything.
Yeah, I came my podcast studio.
Yeah, exactly. And Jen was like, hey, we should join forces and do this. And I knew she was right. We could scale it and make it bigger together. And then when we found ourselves both working for the same practice who wanted to sell, we were like, okay, we talked about it. We're like, should we go out on our own? Should we divvy it up? And we just decided that we were stronger together. So pros and cons, right? Multiple skill sets together. I am the organized executor. She is the never checks an email visionary. And we work really, really well together. It does not hurt my feelings when she doesn't email me back. I know she's not going to read my email. And I don't think it hurts her feelings if she says an idea and I'm like, I'm ideaed out for the month. Like, let's table it and come back to it. I think it's been a little less lonely. I think being a CEO entrepreneur is lonely. And my husband, her fiance are both involved in the company. Her fiance is our COO. My husband is just unpaid tech labor. And sometimes you need somebody to talk to besides your significant other. I don't know if you feel that, but I'm like, okay, all we've talked about this week is work and we might need to stop. So that part is nice. I think we've been able to expand and grow faster because we're a duo. We automatically have multi-state practices. Most people open a practice and it's just one location. We were able to open 2 locations at once because there's 2 of us. Our networks are a little bit different, and we've been able to kind of web those in. So I feel like those are the major pros. The cons, there's a giant risk, right? It's not all up to me. It's not all up to her. There's been times when we have, had to have honest conversations. I will say that Jen is a very direct communicator, which makes it very easy. We are able to say to each other, like, I don't agree with this. I don't want to do this. And we have overall the same North Star, which has made it work for us. And neither of us is trying to outshine the other. We're both very competitive. And I think as long as we are focused on building the same thing, we're a great team.
Yeah.
But, you've had business partners. It's a little scary.
It was. Yeah, I think, look, every experience is a learned lesson, and there'd be nothing I'd go back and say, do or don't. I think the reason I typically advise against it, probably the same reason my husband told me from the beginning, never hire friends or family. But the woman who runs the entire back end of my business was a friend I sat on the sideline with at my kids' sports events since they were 3. And was somebody I trusted, and I was willing to take that risk because I knew what a solid asset she would be for my company. So I was like, well,
right. I'm willing to lose the friendship, right?
No, and it's grown our friendship beyond. I mean, we're sisters. It's just not even I trust.
And I think that's an interesting thing about Jen and I's dynamic is obviously we are friends now, but we started out as business partners. Yeah. We had 0 relationship. And we don't text all day. We have fun together. We take trips together that are just for fun now, but our relationship started out very much being business focused and fully transparent. And I think that is what I see a lot of people do is they go into business with their best friend. And I don't think that's a good idea.
Well, and I see a lot of hiring family because they have trust issues or don't want to pay for an employee. So this is a nice, cheap way of doing it. And then and then eventually as you scale up, there has to be some sort of an hierarchy in the sense of, someone has to be the leader who makes the decisions and takes accountability for those. And then how do you go and tell your sister-in-law, which has happened, right? Sorry, it's not working out. You're not doing a great job. And then the how that impacts, everybody around you. So it's a delicate, I think.
It is. And we are not perfect. We have had challenges, but I think really honest communication for one, and 2, the fact that we were business partners first are probably the things that have led us. And we are stronger as a team. I mean, we weighed it out. We talked about it. Should we do this together? Should we not? And ultimately, at least now, I'm really glad that we did. I think it has benefited us.
Yes. Well, okay. So speaking of, you 2 are both adorable and the cutest marketing for Cult, but let's actually talk about Cult Conference. So when you guys were let's have a conference, let's do that because there's only 100 million conferences in aesthetics. So
so in 2020, I will say in 2020, the boutique retreat style conference, really, there were very few. And remember, we had just met at one 2 months before, Chris Durrick's Cadaver Lab, which we've been very vocal, was totally the inspiration of our conference. We went there and it was so curated. It was small. It was one of the first times I was around a group of injectors that I felt like, okay, these are my people. Like usually you go to a conference and you're like, that's not my person. I don't think that's my person either. It was like the whole thing. I was like, these are great. I still talk to so many people that I met there. So we sat by the pool, we had the margaritas, and we were like, we should do the skinny spicy margarita, and we should do a elevated conference, keep it really small. We're at 35 attendees max for the first 3 years. We have flexed up to 55 at our last one. And so it's invite only, meaning that we do a little background check. So we make sure that you are a full-time injector. We make sure that you've done this for more than a year. It just makes it fair for the investment of all the injectors so that they're in a room of people who are their peers and they can actually collaborate and learn from. And then we decided to bring in the speakers that we wanted to hear. Not the same, no offense to the male plastic surgeon, that everyone has heard do the same lecture over and over and over, and you don't even inject, sir. So like we were over that. So we wanted it to be the conference that we wanted to go to. And I think that's why it's been a success.
I love it. And it's grown tremendously. And this is I think you said 2020, I could do the math. And then
so we're going on, we started out, we did one a year and then we did two. So this year, our 7th one will be in Nashville. And then our 8th one will happen in September in Scottsdale. So 7 and 8 are happening in 2025. So it's grown tremendously. I will say, due to our relationships that we both brought to the table, we've had support from, the big industry companies that you know of from the very beginning, which has helped tremendously. But we had no clue what we were doing. We literally stuck a poster board behind the stage at the first conference, like at the last minute. Like I look at the photos and I'm like, that wasn't the vibe. But we branded from the very beginning. Our books are so curated and cute. Yeah. The swag bag is cool and the content is valuable. You can't just be cute. You can be cute and educational and smart and badass, but you can't just be cute,
And you do this yourself.
Oh yeah. Jen and I are the only. And my husband helps with AV. We have an AV team. We bring in a medical assistant, and then we usually have one of our patient concierge front desk that comes in and helps us execute the dinners. But we do this all ourselves. I mean, we theme it out. We plan it all. It is a labor of love. There is not enough money to be made in this. I can tell you that. I love planning the conferences, though.
Yes. So let's talk to that. Do you think if like someone's listening, like an injector is like, I want a conference, do you think they should start one?
No, I don't think you should. I don't think
the title of this podcast should be Don't Do What I Do.
Literally don't do what I did, which my mom would probably say was like my whole life story. Like I survived it, but you probably won't. Think that if you want to start a community in your area, amazing. You want to start a dinner club for your local injectors, awesome idea. I think if you want to start a conference, a couple things I would say. You need to have a clear vision of what your conference is going to do. Do you have connections? Can you get top talent to come speak at your conference? I don't know that about your listeners. They're pretty badass. They might be able to do it. And then do you really want to? It takes a lot of coordination, a lot of time, a lot of stress leading up to each conference. I have joked and said it's like being pregnant twice a year because the whole time I'm like, why do I do this? Why do I do that? And then at the conference, it's this amazing energy and it happens every single time. The last day on Sunday, Jen and I are like, okay, so when is the next one? Every single time.
Yes, I can relate. I know that feeling.
I mean, you run a retreat, like it's very similar. And I've also been listening to a lot of business podcasts where they talk about, buying companies that don't have a lot of HR and people involvement, right? Like that's the way to do it. Like, what's her name? Cody, who's huge right now. She's like, go buy a laundromat or buy a car wash, right?
Yeah.
Okay, because there's less.
She's not advising to buy a laundromat anymore.
Is she not? But at a conference, you're talking about 55 injectors that come to your conference. You're talking about usually 10 speakers who I speak, we tend to be a little diva-ish, and like somebody's flight, it gets canceled and how do we get you in? And it's just logistics nightmare, which makes it fun and chaotic.
Yeah. But I love that you have that, because this is what we do is we're visionary creators, and running a sustainably, like a business sustainably for a long time takes boring ass shit all day long, every day. And then you have to, you get it to the point where it's finally working and you just have to follow the structure. And then, until you're bottlenecked again. And then you have to figure that out.
Until it's time to grow. And then
you go through this whole thing. And so at least it's like an outlet for you. So you don't have to go completely turn your business upside down, disrupt, rebrand, like spend a bunch of money on a bunch of random stuff you don't need in your business because you have your conference.
I love it. It's fun. So maybe I'm going to change my stance. Maybe you're listening to this and you should start a conference. I don't know. I just think when I think about the time that I spend planning the conference and the financial reward, I should just pick up a couple days extra injecting or hire another injector or something like that. But it's amazing. And the community we've built of injectors at this is, I wouldn't trade that for the world. I mean, we DM each other all the time. We text each other all the time. I always have somebody to send my patient that's moving to another state to. It's this big cycle of, all the culties. It's fun. And you don't come to the conference and feel the chaos. That's the beauty of it. It's, you come and you feel like it is so smooth and organized. And how did
That's
you do?
what I was going to say. I'm sure a lot of people really appreciate the work that you put in. So, okay. So you mentioned that this feels like birthing twice a year. So,
which I would know nothing about because I've never birthed a child.
Right. Okay. So why carrying around the IVF bag? Talk to us about that. Cause
2024 was the year of IVF. It was accidental IVF. So I've never had this intense maternal instinct. I love my dog. I know I would be an amazing mother. I know my husband would be an amazing father. I've enjoyed my career. I got married a little bit late. I think I was 31 when I got married. It's late for Alabama, where I'm born and raised. And I was busy like building this life that I had envisioned forever. And I wasn't so preoccupied with it. So I knew that this year would not be the year to try to have a child. And I was like, I'm definitely not getting any younger. My eggs are probably getting dusty sitting on the shelf. So maybe we should, do a little IVF. So we went to the appointment. The first thing they usually have you do is a genetic blood test. So my husband and I find out that we carry this like 1 in a million gene, each of us. And it's this horrific mitochondrial disease. So we should never have kids naturally.
We both have it.
We both carry it. We know nobody in our family, but we both carry this gene. So our child would have a 25% chance of having this disease. It's horrific. That was enough for us to say, like, we're good. And so now we're trying to make embryos, which is really fun, especially later on in life. I mean, I will say this to people listening. If you're in your 20s and you have the financial means, go ahead and freeze those eggs. They get old. I mean, I'm almost 35 and I did 4 cycles. I had 2 cycles that were complete wash. We got nothing. And then my first and my 4th cycle, we got 2 embryos each time. So when you have a gene that you're testing against, you have to do the second step. So we have chromosomally normal embryos, but they have to go get tested against our genetic probe. So now, I mean, we're like just a little science experiment.
What does it cost? I talked to my sister about it because she's 35, 30's going to be 36. And so she's like, I'm just going to go, take care of business and freeze my old eggs.
100%. She should. It depends on your state. There's some states that have fertility and fertility insurance, and a lot of companies do now. It's usually on average about $17,000 to $20,000 a cycle.
Okay.
Yeah. So like a car.
Yeah.
And then if you have to get extra testing done because you're, both genetically funky, then It's like just an extra whammy in there. And it's crazy because we're not really 100% sure that we want to have a family of children, I should say. I don't know that you have to have kids to have a family.
Yeah.
I ask my patients all the time. I was thinking about this actually, because I thought we might talk about it. Women in general, and I don't know if this is an American thing versus a Europe thing, we love to make everything sound super miserable. Like we're like, oh my God, have a kid. It's so terrible. You'll never sleep again. You'll never have sex with your husband again. You'll never enjoy your company again, but you should definitely do it. And I'm like, what is that? Why do we do that? Is it just literally that like everybody wants everybody to be like miserable with them? Yeah. So I don't know. And I think but like owning a company isn't a cakewalk. Running companies isn't easy. So I've said this and I feel confident in this. If we decide to have a child, we will make it fun. We will make it an adventure. We will have a great time. But it's kind of the older you get, the scarier it gets. I don't know. You have a family. What do you think about this?
I feel like it is okay. So first of all, I have total PTSD from like I think I just like wished away the first 5 years of my children's lives. Like I was not do not like being pregnant. It is nasty. It is not attractive. It doesn't smell good. It doesn't feel good. Like there's nothing attractive about it. Some women like that. I did not like having babies. Like there were things about it, but for the most part, I didn't like the toddlers running around. Yeah. But now I have a 13 and 16-year-old and I love it. Like they're like actual humans that like interact and bring value to your life and make you laugh. And like motherhood is such a gift. And I think it's incredible. But I also, I always worked. I didn't stay home. And so I didn't have to have those conversations about how miserable my life was running after children because I had help, So.
Yeah. And I feel like that would be exactly how I would be. Who knows? We'll see. It's been an interesting thing to do. And yeah, I mean, I did it all, traveled all over the US to conferences, speaking on stage with my like swollen, IVF belly. And again, IVF's the same way. Everyone's like, it's so terrible. It was fine. It was fine. Did I love giving myself a million shots a day? No. Did I love getting probed once a week or every other day? Not exactly. Especially when I walked in and like went spread eagle and the ultrasound tech comes in and of course she's a patient of mine. Oh, and I'm like, oh, hi, here's my vagina. It's so nice to meet you.
Yeah.
She was like, do you want to probe yourself? I was like, no, girl, I don't want to probe myself. Just do it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's all wild, but
yeah,
it's fun and totally doable. And I do think if you are in the financial means to even just do one round and get some eggs chilling on ice, like maybe go ahead and do it.
That's funny. I love it. So looking ahead for over the next several years, so 5 years from now, what is the vision for Allie and for Colt?
I think the vision is I wish I could give you this clear timeline, and I really can't. I believe that we will very intentionally expand when there is an area that we know we're ready to go to. We are not going to irresponsibly expand all over and lose the heart of cult aesthetics. It's too important to us that we maintain the values and the standard that we've set. And I think, we're a year in. We're still growing in our own offices. We're still honing in. And I don't even mean growing, I learned this from you too, growing by doing more. I mean growing by doing less and doing the best at that core thing that we do at Cult Aesthetics that makes us Cult Aesthetics. The conference in 5 years, will she still be here? Gosh, that's a lot. That's so many conferences, but probably, I mean, 5 years seems like a long time and then also none at all. Do I think that personally I'll have a little minion running around? Probably. It's hard to do all this stuff to your body and then not get curious.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's go.
I know, right?
I love it.
And I hope that I'm still getting to do the parts of this business that I really love: mentoring, teaching other injectors, speaking at other conferences. And my conference, I really enjoy that part. And you know, I don't know that I'll ever leave injecting completely, but in 5 years, will I be injecting 4 days a week now?
Yeah. Really quick before we kind of wrap up here, I do want to circle back on what you mentioned about scale, right? And about growing, like what you mean by cutting back and still growing. And, what is that experience been like for you, learning about what it takes to do that, and then actually going back and like implementing some of those practices into your day-to-day operations of your business?
Yeah, so I thought about this a lot because this was one of the major things that I learned from Confidence to Scale and then immediately came home and implemented, and it felt like overnight I felt this shift in my company. So, you have to remember that I came into Confidence to Scale. We had a lot of turnover. We had a couple, people leave the practice. I would say that our culture and our morale was not where I wanted it to be. So I came into Confidence to Scale and we talked a lot about, one, defining what your dream employee looked like, and then two, setting boundaries. And we talked a lot about the reason you don't do it is you're worried somebody's going to judge you, or you're not focused. So I decided that instead of just immediately going out and hiring an office manager and kind of redelegating those CEO tasks that I think I had prematurely delegated, I was going to stop taking new patients. That was going to free up my schedule so that I could do the things that you guys taught me to do, right? Focus on being the CEO of this company, focus on leading my team, which meant that and this is kind of embarrassing to say, but let me get to know my team and my employees again. Because I felt like I had separated myself so much that I lost touch with them. So I have so much more interaction with my medical assistants, my front desk, the other providers here. So I actually know where they're at, what they need. I can help mentor them and make sure that they are, representing cult aesthetics. It's been such a really positive change in our practice. And even my patients are like, the vibes here are so good. And I'm like, I know they are good. And that doesn't mean that no one's ever going to leave cult aesthetics, right? It doesn't mean that it's only good if you stay with me forever. Like, that is not the vision. The vision is that I'm curating a team that's able to grow within our company, that's seeing their career blossom here. And that might lead them to another career or another job, but it's going to be be in a way that's growth and positive, right? It doesn't always have to be this big, terrible, she left, it's horrible thing.
Well, no. Well, first of all, you shouldn't be embarrassed by saying that. I think there's a lot of people who are going to appreciate that you did, because they're feeling that disconnect themselves. I
was like the outsider in my own practice,
Yeah. Well, it's also very difficult. It is very, here I am being an American. My sister would love that comment, by the way. She lives in Switzerland. She's European now. But not to make it a complaint, but it is a balancing act, trying to grow as a service provider, trying to grow your company, and then also develop team. And it's like the business is growing, which means you need to bring team on to help you. But then the business is growing. So the business demands a lot of you. It is very challenging. And I think if you're not being very intentional and also saying, it's going to take me 6 months of completely shifting my daily habits to spend more time with this new employee to make sure that they get brought onboarded, drink the Kool-Aid properly, and that I'm very intentional about teaching them what I expect of them, then you're going to drive yourself crazy trying to act well, why aren't they just figuring it all out?
It's so easy to hit. It's the lazy button, and it's the I'm annoyed with you button when I'm really annoyed with myself because I didn't set you up for success. And not even, or I wasn't clear so that you knew the expectations. And then even worse to that is I didn't hold you to the expectations.
Right.
So I think that has been the biggest change. And it can be scary to see when you're the larger injector of your practice, and then all of a sudden you're not taking new patients, you're like, where are they going to go? Are they going to come here? Are they going to go somewhere else? And not all of them are going to come here, but a lot of them are still coming here, and they're seeing these other providers that I've invested in who are amazing providers who, quite frankly, you want to go see because she is going to do the best freaking job because I've trained her to do it. But if you don't get out your own way, they're all going to just be on your schedule forever and ever, and nothing grows.
Okay, so last question I want to ask you is to that point. What advice would you give a provider who's trying to scale up her business and her patients keep telling her, but I want you?
Yeah. So you have to credential your other providers, and you need to start doing it on social media. You need to do it in the room. One of the best things I did, this is passing off to a newer esthetician that I hired, is she was my medical assistant. She still is acting as my medical assistant some days. So she's in the room, she does the skincare audits, and immediately when I'm recommending a skin treatment, I'm like, well, Liz is already in the room. She's going to do your consult. I'll get you scheduled in her books. That one's easy, but if you have a laser provider or esthetician you're trying to grow, get them in the room with you all the time because that referral is amazing. And then do the same thing with your other providers. And maybe you start out by, so for instance, we have a skin sculpt, which is Sculptra and microneedling. I don't do anything that has microneedling. I recommend it to almost all my patients. And I'm like, Jessica is the best at this. So you're going to see her. She's going to do your skin sculpt. And that way they get in the chair with her. They realize that Jessica's a badass and she's super smart. You start to build that trust. So I don't think it has to happen overnight. You don't have to just, close the garage door. You can trickle it in. And then at some point you just say, like, I'm not taking new patients, and you have to stick to your guns. Because even my front desk is like, Allie, they said that you said
I know.
That you would see them. And I'm like, I probably did say that.
But you got to be the bad guy. Yeah.
So I need you to be the gatekeeper. But, when's the right time to do it? It's taken me 10 years, but I think when you're ready to actually grow and you have other team members, you have to do it in order to help them grow. Because as long as you're still taking new patients, they're going to come see you. Yeah. And then you're still the face. So that's my advice on transitioning it. And I haven't fully done it. I'm not perfect at it, but I will say for the last, it's been 3.5 months. And I feared that my revenue would plummet because I'm still seeing patients. I'm just seeing my established patients and I have these long gaps in the day. But what I'm finding is that my patient that's scheduled a Botox appointment, I'm now able to, they say, can we do my facial balancing? Of course we can. I've got time. Let's do it. So it's my high value patients that I want to see that are there. And they're still referring their friends. I've just told them, when you recommend your friends, have them see Joseph, have them see Mandy or whoever it is, right?
Yeah. That's awesome. That's really great advice. Well, this has been such a fun conversation, Allie. And so I guess the people are dying to know if they want to come have a spicy skinny margarita with you by a pool and a cigarette, like how do they get in touch with you?
Guys, I don't smoke cigarettes anymore. I'm trying to grow embryos. So I do red light and do cold plunge now. No, I'm just joking. I mean, you never know. If I'm in Europe, I probably would still have a cig. But if you want to talk skinny, spicy margaritas or travel tips, the Atlanta Injector is my Instagram. That's the easiest place to find me. And then Cult Conference, if you guys are wanting to check out either of our conferences next year.
Awesome. Yes. And I will see you in Nashville in May.
That is right.
That's right. And then you have Scottsdale when?
September 12th. So we've got Nashville, May 30th, and Scottsdale is September 12th.
All right. So save the date, people. Well, thanks, Allie. It's been super fun.
Thanks, Kaylee. I'm going to get nothing but like cigarette and skinny spicy margarita DMs, I hope, for the next year.
It's going to be all of comments and all the comments of our marketing for this. It's going to be so good.
I love it. I can't wait. All right. Thank you so much for doing this with me.
Listen, leader, if you're vibing with me here, hang tight because I have a brand new resource for you. You are a successful, confident, powerful woman who just isn't into being average. No, you have a calling, and part of that calling is requiring you to level up. And I know that if you're working across the next $1 million milestone in your business, you need to be in the right circles. And perhaps that's why you found us. I'd love to invite you to join The Blueprint, a weekly resource for inspired, provocative thinkers who are taking this conversation to the next level. Get access to free business tools, podcast supplements, guideposts, and direct communication with me and my expert team. And of course, a masterfully curated circle of women making big moves and disrupting the status quo in aesthetics and wellness. You can link directly through the show notes or head to klcconsultants.com/blueprint. It's time to elevate. See you there, goddess.